Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Growing Up with Godzilla. This is my show where I have conversations with Godzilla fans about how they've grown with the character and franchise over time. We are in season 3 of the show, which is, of course, always hard to believe, but here we are. I've had some wonderful conversations with not only some new faces, but also some returning human beings as well who are also phenomenal. I like to bring them back and pick their brains repeatedly. And this phenomenal human being, who's one of my besties, is making her first return to season 3 of the show. And I know we're going to nerd out about a lot because we often tend to. So I would like to welcome back my unbelievably wonderful sister, Cyndi, who goes by StreamofAwareness here on YouTube.
Hi.
It's good to
Hello.
see you. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing good and it's good to see you and happy Pride.
Happy Pride Month. Happy, like, Pride nails. Look, they match my Godzilla shirt.
Oh my god, that's so cute. That's
Thank you.
adorable.
Oh my goodness. It took me forever to do them, though. Like, I am not the best at painting my nails because I do it so rarely. So it was. I kept having to, like, wait. Like, come on, Donny, you have to wait for them to dry. Why are you doing work? What are you doing? So it's
well,
always a
the
struggle.
trick the trick with their nails is paint your dominant hand first and then you don't have to worry about having a sloppy, messy hand that you don't control well trying to keep your nails dry and paint the other hand.
If only
So
I would have
like,
done that.
eh,
I'm just
live and
rebellious. What
learn.
can I say? So, this, I think that you are probably one of my most recurring guests on the show. This, I think,
Am I?
is probably your sixth appearance on Growing Up with Godzilla. Isn't that wild?
That is wild. Like, oh my gosh.
I say six, including like the end season compilation episodes, of course. But like, I appreciate how you're always willing to bear with me and nerd out with me. So it's always good to see you.
Oh, I'm glad that everybody tolerates me being here vomiting autism everywhere. I love
People
being
don't
here.
tolerate you. People celebrate you.
Of course. We're fabulous.
I know. So the fun thing about this episode, everybody, is that I am going to be throwing a bunch of new questions at Cyndi that none of you have heard. And these are my third round questions. So I'm hoping that you enjoy them because at the end of the day, what do we do here on Growing Up with Godzilla? We pick apart and unpack our histories with the character and franchise. And while many may think that there is not a lot that one can unpack in that, well, you're about to find out that that is absolutely not the case. There is plenty to unpack, right? So, here's my first question for you, my dear. What aspects of Godzilla, in your opinion, make the character a pop cultural icon? I ask this because Godzilla has been on cloud nine lately. Like films, multiple films, awards, accolades, acknowledgments. What aspects of Godzilla, in your opinion, make the character a pop cultural icon?
Well, the thing about Godzilla is that he is malleable in the sense that you can apply him to like almost any kind of situation. I mean, hello, I took and made him Beast in a Beauty and the Beast fanfic that you love so much and that
I
I
do
know
love
other
that
people
fanfic.
love so much. So like, but like you can take any kind of like ecological or supernatural or nuclear or even biological disaster and apply Godzilla to it and he'll fit in. I mean, Godzilla minus one, it hits on things that are kind of salient today in the sense of like government abandonment, trauma, shame,
Mm-hmm.
and just private citizens coming together because the government's over picking its butt instead of doing its job. So the private
Right.
citizens come together. And I mean, what has the government done with COVID? They basically just went, whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And drama, like, oh my god, like I could talk for days about trauma because I'm in therapy for it currently. I mean, since we were last here, I've done a lot of things. I've been put on an antidepressant, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
in therapy, and like Godzilla minus one, that comes up so much in my therapy.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, personally, too, I think Godzilla can fit into so many places in our own lives and our struggles because I think, in a way, we can all relate to Godzilla's struggles. He didn't ask to be made.
Mm-hmm.
He
Right. Yeah.
happened because humans were being jerks, and messing around with nukes, or they were forgetting their war dead,
Mm-hmm.
or they woke him up because he was nice and asleep, and then we woke up the Mutos, and well, guess what?
Yeah.
No matter what, he's always gonna like show up, and he never really dies. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, even if he does melt, his kid might just take up the mantle.
Right. Yeah.
So,
No, I'm glad that you mentioned that because I think that's one thing that I've really wanted to do with this show is to showcase to people that so many different groups of people from very unique walks of life take something away from Godzilla that is, they could be unique. They could be very specific, unique interpretations of the character and the stories through various different vantage points, right? Case in point, like I actually shared this article a few days ago. There was this article where an LGBTQ plus person wrote about, how Godzilla can be a metaphor for queer anger. And I thought that that was such an interesting, thoughtful commentary because, like, as an LGBTQ plus person myself, I often really gravitated toward Godzilla's sense of otherness, his how he's often misunderstood, how he's kind of, in his own way, fighting against adversity, like being misinterpreted by humanity, having to fight all of these foes all the time. And, as a young queer person, like, I really connected with that. And seeing this commentary about Godzilla being a metaphor, possibly being a metaphor for queer anger, like, was very thought provoking. Because
mm-hmm,
sometimes that anger that wells inside us is from years of trauma. We don't know sometimes how to control it. Sometimes we turn it in on ourselves. It does so many different things, right? And
mm-hmm,
case in point, I actually I did a poetry reading yesterday, and you know that I do some Godzilla poems, and I actually read a new poem titled Queerzilla, where I kind of really hone in on how people misinterpret or misunderstand Godzilla, especially in the stories, and I kind of translated that to how we feel misunderstood. So you really hit me on a nerdy touching point right there. So anyway, what were you about to
mm-hmm.
say?
Oh, I'm just saying, when you mentioned queer anger, I get it because autistic anger.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Absolutely.
like, Godzilla communicates, but people don't understand it. I swear that Heisei Godzilla is always talking, and the humans just don't listen to it. And it's like, you know, every incarnation of Godzilla, like, speaks in his own way, but it's like, I understand it. It makes sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
Like MonsterVerse Godzilla. I wrote that little fan fiction, of Song of the Tiny Ones that Mike
Mm-hmm.
Doherty just went, oh my god, about and
I still cannot
stuff
believe that
like that.
happened.
Me either. But like it's just, Godzilla is just I feel like he's MonsterVerse Godzilla especially, he's so ancient and he's seen so many things, and like he has seen how good and ugly humanity can be. And it's like in the end I kind of feel like he just wants to be left alone to sleep, but things keep happening. And
Mm-hmm.
and like as an autistic person I get it, it's like I just want to be left alone, but oh my god, people keep bothering me, the phone keeps ringing, or I keep having to disrupt my routines, and it's like "Rrr," you know
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
sometimes you just gotta
overstimulation.
sometimes you just gotta screw, you know
Right. And you know what? There's been so many instances in Godzilla films where Godzilla has gone through something like that, like being pestered by things, attacked by things, like navigating all of these different variables and retaliates, right? Or gets angry. Like I feel like that
Mm.
Godzilla is a very good commentary for, um, like like neurodiversity in general because of that unique communication factor, because of all of that misunderstanding that he deals with. So I think that's it's very thought provoking in my opinion.
Yeah, and even minus one Godzilla, he just wants people to leave his territory alone. And it's like we kind of can't because it seems like most of his territory might just be the entire freaking Earth. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But, like, in the scene where you see the fireball just crisp him, just burn him
Mm-hmm.
up and his eyeball disappears, he's screaming.
Mm-hmm.
He's screaming. He's in pain. And I think he knows who did it. It was these little critters, so I'm going to get them all.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's like
Yeah.
I don't want that to ever happen again. And it's like, I know Heisei Godzilla is in a lot of pain. I know Shin Godzilla is in a lot of pain, and Minus Goji is in a lot of pain. But I feel like Minus Goji is enraged by his
Mm-hmm.
pain, and I get enraged by pain. So I understand it, but humans and Godzilla don't speak the same language to each other. So we can't communicate to him. We can't sit him down with a therapist and be like, okay, let's hear your problems and let's work on
Mm-hmm.
them, because
Right.
I mean, even Shodai Goji, the original for 54, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
And that's what makes it so tragic is that we can't sit and reason with him. They have to
Right.
stop him.
Yeah. No, and I think so. It also has me thinking a lot about because there are people who aren't in these marginalized communities who sometimes will get really upset over our interpretations or what we take away from the character. And they're often they often make comments like, well, you're reading too much into it, you're over analyzing, or my favorite classic, why do you have to make everything gay? Well, first and foremost, I'm absolutely not making Godzilla gay, obviously. But as a gay person, that doesn't mean that Godzilla can't mean something to me that might be different than what he means to you, right? So I would
Exactly.
say that my response to those people would be, everyone has different takeaways, and just because they may not be your takeaway does not make their takeaway any less, right? Like, for
Amen.
example, I don't completely resonate with, a lot of what you take away from Godzilla, because I have the privilege of, of the way that my mind works, right? And the fact that it's not misunderstood by mass groups of people, whereas you are a part of a neurodiverse community that's often misunderstood. So your takeaways, they might mean everything to you, and they may not fully resonate with my set of experiences, but that doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to invalidate them because those are unique things that you're taking away from the character, and I think they sometimes intersect with one of what I experience and what I take away,
Mm-hmm.
but it ultimately helps me learn not only more about the character, but more about you as a human
Mm-hmm.
being. So, in conclusion, on that point, everyone, we learn about each other as people by examining what we take away from these fictional universes. So, let's not shame people for that, right?
Exactly. Don't yuck someone else's yum.
That's the perfect way of putting it, honestly.
Exactly.
Well, I say that because I know both you and I have dealt with a lot of people in the past who have kind of, sucked the air out of the room regarding, like, our enthusiasm about the character, our takeaways, the fact that Godzilla has helped us survive in similar but also different fashions, right?
Mm-hmm.
So obviously Godzilla is very much a comfort to both of us, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which Godzilla film would you say is your comfort film and why?
Well, is it okay if I have more than one?
Absolutely.
Because right now, currently, Godzilla Minus One has been really comforting because I went and I saw it in the theater right around the time that it came out because I, my brain and my soul needed it.
Mm-hmm.
So, I went and I saw it in the theater, and it was kind of, it came right before a whole bunch of trauma happened to me very quickly, very rapidly. And, um, you know, I almost took my life. It got so bad. Like, it was really,
Mm,
but that movie, when I saw it at the time, it spoke to me personally, as someone who was about to go through even more trauma after already being through a lot of trauma. And just the message of, you can face your monster and live. And, trauma, surviving it, you're not going to survive it by being mean to yourself. I mean, yeah, Shikishima, he and Noda and Tachiban and all those guys and the private citizens of Japan, they all work together to defeat Godzilla. And that's how we get through our own trauma. Sometimes it's, we don't do it alone. We got a therapist, we got our friends, but ultimately it's not, oh, it's one and done. Every time you are kind to yourself while
mm,
you're dealing with your trauma, you make your Godzilla crumble. You make your monster crumble. You fly into its mouth, you eject, you pull the parachute, you
mm,
survive. And that's what Godzilla minus one means to me. One of my therapy mantras is pull the parachute, because that's what Shikishima did. He faced his trauma and he pulled the parachute and chose to survive it. And that is so important to me, because I almost didn't. I almost didn't. I was so close. I was in the act and then I freaked out and I pulled away from it. But it was hard.
I am glad you're here.
Me too. That
I
was hard to
like
say.
that. I mean, it was hard to say, but it was a very empowering thing to say. Sometimes that's what you gotta do. You make the choice to pull the parachute and you choose to survive, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And this is, see, like, and I know that a lot of people, they may not take something like that away from Godzilla Minus One, and that's totally fine. But for those of us who really connected with the characters like that, like, I will never forget, like, how much I cried while watching Godzilla Minus One simply because of that mental health representation, right? Obviously, the
Mm-hmm.
characters' experiences were drastically different, but the way we've coped, the things that we've had to face, like challenge wise, like internally, some of those things are similar, right? And being able to
Mm-hmm.
see someone on screen in our favorite franchise, nonetheless, represent that is very powerful. That's why representation is so important, right? And
Yes.
I just, and I know people are very quick to, cry woke whenever there is any sort of representation, but the truth is that representation is what brings people to the table. That's what
Exactly.
brings people into our fandom. That's what makes people fall in love with the character, right?
Yeah, and I've had some people that have never seen a Godzilla movie in their life. They saw me just gushing about minus one, so they went to see it, and they're like, "Oh my God, you're right. That's a really good movie. I'm gonna go check out more Godzilla." And it's like, go for it, go for it.
Right.
So like, so that makes me happy. It's like, yes, please come in. We're nerds. We have radiation cookies here. We have plutonium. Come get
Radiation
it.
cookies. But no, like,
I
so,
feed it to
like,
him.
the fact that Godzilla Minus One has won an Oscar, it destroyed the box office. It was just released on Netflix. I think it was Netflix.
Mm-hmm.
Was it Netflix? It was number one on Netflix for an extended period of time.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this Godzilla film is going to be people's gateway, and it probably already has been so many people's gateway into the Godzilla franchise, and that's what we need, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because we've spent so many years kind of being shamed for liking Godzilla, especially like in the late 90s, early 2000s. Like, people were very quick to just kind of dismiss Godzilla, make fun of the character, the franchise, the effects, whatever. And the fact that Godzilla Minus One won an Oscar for special effects, to me, it was like a full. It was kind of like an fu to all of those like terrible people who were like Godzilla, blah, blah, you know. And it's like I think that's why so many people found that moment so meaningful. Mm.
Exactly. And like at the Oscars, I don't know who there went Gojira, but they were all of us. I mean,
Yes,
whoever screamed that I would have been me if I was there. I would have been screaming it too. Like that was awesome.
it was. So
So,
Godzilla minus one is your primary comfort film. What are your other
mhm.
ones?
Now my other one is Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla 2 in the Heisei era
Mm.
because,
Oh,
baby, I love baby. I love Miki in that movie. I love Azusa and the relationship she has with baby and just how she's kind of like mommy almost,
oh,
at
who's
least
the
in my
dude in
opinion.
that film? Is it?
Aso, I think.
Oh,
Momo
not.
Aso.
Well, also, rest in peace to the actor who played him because he just
Hmm.
recently passed. Akira Nakao, like so, like such a prolific actor.
Hmm.
Really was very much a centerpiece in many of these Godzilla films. So I was just
Hmm.
so sad to see that. But no, I'm talking about Kazuma Aoki.
Yeah, okay. It's like there's so many people. It's like it's the same actor that plays different roles, so it's like I mix them up all the time. But like, yeah, but him, yes, very much.
Masahiro Takadati,
Uh-huh.
who plays him, so
Oh yeah.
attractive. Anyway.
But in that movie, Godzilla is that's a movie where we really see Godzilla be so soft. When he's trying not to scare baby when he can finally reach him. Because it's like
Mm,
he's spending the whole movie trying to get to baby because like he knows. And
mm,
that is the movie where hey, say Godzilla, he's my son, he's my baby boy. Okay, I love him so much because he's my teenage years. He's been so lonely, and now all of a sudden he wasn't. And how he does that slow blink where he's looking down and he's rolling
mm,
so quietly, like I don't want to scare you. And baby runs away, skedaddles behind the container, and his
mm.
eyes are glowing red because he's scared. And it's like that hurts Godzilla's feelings. It's like Godzilla's like, wait, wait, don't run away. I don't want to hurt you. And then
It's a very poignant moment, kind of, when you think about it.
yeah, and I think I know what Miki conveyed to him.
Right.
I think what Miki did because she was like she had to talk to Baby and talk to Godzilla. I think she talked to both of them, but I think that she told Baby that he's very big and he's very scary, but he's very sad and he's very lonely and he needs you. And
Mm-hmm.
that's what convinced him. And it's like he's not going to hurt you. He wants to love you and take care of you. And so, Godzilla, who's been all alone, now he's not. He's got
Mm-hmm.
someone who he can tell the stories about how the sky was red at one time and how he used to, this is my headcanon, but how he used to run away from the T Rexes when he was a tiny little baby Godzillasaur, just like Baby was. Running away, hiding in the grass, and, chasing smaller creatures around. And maybe tell his stories about how this strange world came to be and how he came to be in it.
And that's something that we don't talk about. We don't talk about how utterly alone Godzilla is.
Mm-hmm.
In
So
most of the
lonely.
films, very alone. Um, and like I just see that it kind of brings me back, and I know we talk about this one a lot, but it brings me back to Godzilla versus King Ghidorah. That scene where you know, I mean, the Godzillasaurus just inadvertently saves the platoon, right? And then like
Mm-hmm.
his association with Shindo is like this in this time of like comfort and pain and stuff like that, and then he remembers that that Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah is not my favorite film by any stretch of the imagination, but that those couple of moments in that film develop Godzilla so much and really made people empathize with the character, which I would love to see more of in Godzilla films in the future.
Yeah, exactly. And like, there's something I see in that movie every single time, and I will harp on it forever. But when they're in the window looking at each other, um, you gotta remember Godzilla saw Shindo talking, and then Shindo turned around and left because he had to leave. He couldn't take him. You know, they had no way to carry him. And then what happens next? You know, he gets transported in time, and all of a sudden, all this pain and terror and trauma of mutation. I still believe, from the bottom of my heart, from the bottom of my left ventricle, I swear that Godzilla believes Shindo abandoned him to that pain.
Mm,
Because when he,
interesting.
because the way I see it, you know, he roars and he blasts them. I think what he's saying is, you left me. You left me and it hurt, and I'm going to show you how much it hurt. And he blasted him with the breath, but he didn't stop there. He slams himself into the building and brings it down, and then he just turns and goes.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he could have just done the breath and walked away and let the building just crumble, but no, it's like he was like, ugh, ugh, you're going to suffer just like I did. You're going to
Right.
suffer. You're going to suffer. He was
Wow.
talking. He was saying, I hurt, and here's how it hurt. I'm going to show you. Of course, for Shindo, it
I
was over in a second, but Godzilla doesn't
I
know that.
never interpreted it that way, and that's so interesting to me.
Yeah,
I'm
because,
kind of
you know,
mind blown right
Godzilla
now.
is. He's
Well,
in a
and
lot of emotional pain.
and you don't really think about the fact that like Godzilla's transformation would happen so much more faster and dynamically, like you were saying, right? And so
Mm.
fresh off that thing that he experienced, that vulnerable moment, near death that he experienced. Whereas before, like there was this period of time before that event, and then like when he actually got irradiated, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
um, mind blown. This is why we have these conversations.
I know, and then you gotta remember in Godzilla versus Space Godzilla, Miki was the one that says he has feelings just like we do.
Mm-hmm.
So he has all these emotions. I think Godzilla is smarter about emotions than we are because, you know, he's kind of ruled by them. And
Mm-hmm.
I get that because before I was on the Zoloft, you know, sertraline, Zoloft, the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
But that medication has actually, you know, as an autistic person my entire life, I've lived with emotions I could not control. They would overwhelm my body and my mind physically and mentally, and it's like no matter what they would show up. And now it's like I still feel them, but it's like all of a sudden I have a spigot on this fountain and I can dial it. You know, instead of it just going all the time, I
Mm-hmm.
can be like, okay, I can turn it down and hold it in, and then I can go somewhere else and be like, oh my god, you know.
Yeah.
But it's like I have control that I've never had before. I'm still figuring it out
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
because it's like I was used to cry, God, I wish I could turn my feelings off for a while, and I can now, kind of. Not like Data on Star Trek, but like it's like I could think about them instead of just,
Right.
you know, if that makes
You know,
sense.
no, that makes complete sense. That makes complete sense. I'm trying to think of what my comfort Godzilla film is. For a long while, it's been Godzilla versus Megaguirus, and I think it still is. Between that and the Kiru duology, for some reason, those films are so comforting to me. I don't know if maybe it's Michiru Oshima's scores or what, but like, those are the films that I kind of retreat to in the Godzilla franchise where I'm just like, okay, for Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla, I can just have mindless fun and not think. And then for the duology, I can get like an enriching character, an almost tragic story of Kiru. Mothra's in it, so of course I get that little,
Your girl.
satisfaction. But my gal, but no, like I think we learn a lot from our comfort films, and we don't often realize it. We gravitate to them for a reason, right?
Mm-hmm. They meet a
Yeah,
need.
yeah. So interesting question for you. Do you ever imagine that you are in the Godzilla films? If so, what role did you give yourself?
Oh my god, are you ready for the autistic vomit?
I knew this would be a good question. Yes.
Here it comes. Okay, so when I was a kid watching Son of Godzilla, I wanted to be Riko Matsumiya so much because she's just so beautiful. She's living on the land. She lives with these monsters. And she can do her little thing, and Minya pops up. So when I was a kid, I used to live in like this apartment complex. So it had like a courtyard. We called it the square because it's like there's these two narrow walkways, and then it opens up into the square, and there were like these two huge trees. Like, I don't know, they weren't magnolia trees. I don't know what kind, but anyway, they had humongous leaves on them. But I would climb this tree, and the apartment complex was 2-story houses. I would try to climb as high into that tree as I could, and I could get high enough to see over the rooftops of the houses. Like, I was way up there. Like, my mom would have killed me if she saw me up there. I was 9, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm almost 44, so that was when dinosaurs ruled the earth.
And I don't
But
think you look a day over 30, in my opinion.
but I would get all the way up into that tree as high as I could, not all the way to the top, but I could see over the rooftops. I could see west, and I would sing at the top of my lungs like her, because I was like, I really wish I could call Godzilla, and if he's gonna come, it's either gonna be from the south or from the west, because that's I'm in California, so California goes in a curve, so the beaches are west and like south. So I would watch the horizon and be like, okay, when am I going to see his head appear? When am I going to see him start to show up? And also, um, Godzilla's Revenge or All Monsters Attack, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I really loved Ishiro in that movie. That kid, he was so cute. And just, the
He
whole stand
was.
up to your bullies aspect, and he stands up to the robbers, and Godzilla always says you need to fight our own battles and not be cowards. And I had a radio, a little battery operated radio. Okay, this is so goofy, but kid logic.
I
Okay, 9 year
love
old
it.
me. Okay, I would take that radio with me, and I would go outside, and sometimes I would get up in the tree doing my Rico thing, and sometimes I would just, sit outside, but I would tune the radio all the way to one of the static stations, like all the way to one end or the other, and I would I would turn up the volume really loud, and I would take the antenna and I would point it different directions. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes I would put like foil on it and pipe cleaners. Like, I was trying to make it stronger. I thought I could make the signal stronger. I was
This is
trying to
so cute.
contact. I was trying to contact Monster Island because I wanted to talk to Godzilla as a kid, and I thought if I could just pick him up on Monster Island, maybe I could tell him where I am. Of course, that would have been a disaster if he had come to where I was. But the kid me, Showa Godzilla is my imaginary friend as a kid. I wanted to talk to my friend. Like it was on the phone. And I mean, it was a radio for like music, not like a walkie talkie. But
Mm-hmm.
but it's like I was like, Mom, what's a vacuum tube? When I was a kid because of that movie. Like, that
I
was old school, but oh my god.
that is the most resonating thing I've ever heard in my life. I used to do similar things, very similar things. So I except mine were very Mothra focused. So I often would pretend to be like Mickey Sagusa, like psychic powers, or I'd pretend to be one of Mothra's fairies. I literally would go outside. I would glance westward or southward as well, and I would sing the Mothra song and hope that. And then heaven for like when Tokyo SOS came out, I would like make Mothra's symbol everywhere in like our yard to like try to summon her. Like I did so much to try to summon Mothra.
Oh my gosh, that's so cute.
I know. I would even dress up. Like heaven
Oh my
knows my
gosh.
cousins didn't know that I was stealing their dresses, so
Oh, bless your heart. That's so sweet.
And then like it was interesting. Like I remember, I think that's why meeting Megumi Odaka was so important for me when I went to G Fest 2018. I still cannot believe that happened.
Oh, I'm so
I
happy for you.
thank you. I like being able to meet like the character who I resonated with her character so much because I felt she also was misunderstood by a variety of different characters. She was also alone, but she had like this very unique connection with Godzilla, with Mothra after a certain point, where I was just like I want to be that person. I want to
Hmm.
be like her best friend. I want to be her sibling. I want to be, and that really just, that's when I started falling in love with fan fiction, and when I was able to start writing my own stories, as you well know, I began putting myself. I Mary Sued myself in those stories. I
Hey,
Mary
you put
Sued
me in
all.
them.
I put myself in them. I put you in them. Like all of our friends were like a group of people with it was like a off-brand X-Men, but in the Godzilla universe,
Mhm.
basically. But like I had so much fun doing that because writing that stuff made me feel so much closer to the characters. It made me appreciate them more. It made me appreciate the franchise more in general. And yeah, like there was a lot of cringy stuff. Lot of
Oh,
a
we
lot of
love the cringe. We love the cringe here. I mean, just make it a big old block of Limburger cheese. We love the cringe. Even if it smells funny, we love it.
what was it? Was it Maddie in the last episode of Growing Up with Godzilla left a comment? Like, because we were talking about, like, what were we talking about? With Talking Toko, was we were talking about something that led to Maddie commenting, like, yeah, I remember Saphir Donny, like, me with my white hair pretending to be a huge anime villain.
Oh, yeah, that was Z, I believe.
I created this alter ego Z. It was wild. I don't
With
know.
his white hair. And I know I made a Photoshop of it that looks so goofy. Like,
Oh,
how much that cost now?
I used to do such terrible Photoshop. Like your Photoshops were good, but dude, everyone, I spent so much time on these forums with these fanfics making photo manipulations because I was like, these are promos for my fanfics, and then like music videos. At some point I'm gonna have to share them on the show because they just need to happen. But like we would literally record ourselves pretending to be psychics, like acting out scenes from the stories. We were just like, oh, Godzilla's coming. Oh, I'm gonna summon Mothra. Oh, it was
Look at
amazing.
me, psychic powers. Look at me. Godzilla's coming.
And I still have all of those. I still have all of those.
They're somewhere.
I even have some that I never even released that are just on an external hard drive somewhere.
Oh my
So,
god, you gotta post them. But I have one more answer to your
yes.
question. One more answer. I also wanted to be like one of Miki's psychics, like one of the people that maybe worked along with her, kind of like Maru was in Godzilla vs. Destroya. But like, I would be in Godzilla's head nonstop. I would probably start walking and roaring like him eventually. Like, I would just want to hear him, want to feel him, want to know him, because like I feel like his mind was so powerful that he could pull on Miki's brain anytime he wanted, and he was just nice about it.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like when she would be like, "Godzilla's coming," is that he was announcing to her, "Yo, I'm coming. I'm on my way."
Mm-hmm.
So
Yep.
like,
I love
get ready,
that.
girl. It's like I don't
Oh,
think he was her boyfriend, but who knows?
no, but well, people have interpretations,
I
right?
made I made him her boyfriend. Well, not Heisei Godzilla. That was GMK Godzilla in my Beauty and the Beast fanfic. But yeah,
Well, and
and
we
he
could
has
also
little
talk about how we get to, like, I know people are not a fan of Mothzilla because the MonsterVerse has really popularized Godzilla and Mothra being a thing.
Kong and
And,
Shimo. You know,
right. And like I think it's completely innocent. Like I think it's just like I don't see any problem with it. So here's an interesting question for you. Which Godzilla film would you argue is the most underrated?
well. it's hard to say because, I see people's views on Twitter. I will never call it X, screw that.
Me
But
neither.
on Twitter, people will flip flop on their opinions on films so much, and it's like one day they're praising King of the Monsters, and the other they're saying, "Oh my god, it sucks," and you suck if you like it, and it's like we're not in a dick measuring contest, okay? We all
Mm-hmm.
have dicks here, okay, metaphorically, because not everyone is born with one, but we all got dicks here. Who cares what size it is? It's how you use it. Anyway.
Fair.